What's good, guys? So my last couple of videos have been in regards to the negligence, errors, scandals as they relate to the Cook County, Illinois Medical Examiner's Office. This video is also going to be part of that series. And specifically, what really prompted me to do these videos are, well, several reasons, but the main one is in regards to the Kenneka Jenkins case and the reason that I distrust or mistrust the medical examiner's office so much. And I'm showing you why. I'm just showing you. I can show you better than I can tell you. So this video is going to be no different. This is from the Associated Press on September the 30th, 2019. And we're going to get into this a little bit deeper.
Helluva, she's so fine. Helluva, blows my mind. Helluva, lights my day.
This appeared on ABC 20 news channel. It says Chicago, Associated Press. The family of a late Chicago man is angry that his body sat unidentified for months in Cook County's morgue. David Wow's body was in a morgue for more than 5 months, listed as a John Doe. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office described it as that of a 45-year-old black man, though Wow was a 31-year-old white man. Yes, you heard that right. The ME's office described this man as a 45-year-old black man, when in reality he was a 31-year-old white man. His body was finally identified based on several tattoos after his family hired a private investigator. His body was found in a vacant home and the death was ruled an overdose. Cynthia Matthews tells WBBM-TV that she's, quote, haunted, end quote, by the months her son's body spent unidentified in the morgue. The family has filed a complaint against the Chicago Police Department, the City of Chicago, and the Medical Examiner's Office alleging negligence. Can you imagine? I mean, how do you even make that mistake? Moving right along. This case is from, October the 4th, 2019, just a little over a year ago. This is from Patch. It says, Lake County lawyer finds $2.3 million in autopsy. Woman dies during surgery. Family charges medical negligence. Expert says autopsy, quote, flat wrong, end quote. This is a doozy too. On September the 17th, 2019, here we go with this September time period, the Circuit Court of Cook County approved a $2.3 million settlement against a Chicago hospital in a wrongful death lawsuit brought by the family of a woman who died during a routine gallbladder surgery. Attorneys Sean Burke, Stephen Phelan, and David Balcom represent the family of a 49-year-old woman who worked at the hospital where she died. The assistant Cook County medical examiner who performed the autopsy mistakenly attributed the woman's death to natural causes when, in fact, she died due to surgical negligence. This mistake raises further concerns about errors emanating from the Cook County Coroner's Office, where there is currently an ongoing review of more than 200 cases conducted by one of its now dismissed pathologists who missed a murder and erred in multiple death examinations. Quote, there are 2 errors that never should have happened. The surgeon should never have inserted the gas inflation needle into the woman's liver. The assistant medical examiner should never have missed the real cause of this woman's tragic death. The expert doctors we retained closely examined the operative records and autopsy report. They found that she died from a gas bubble lodged in the heart, a carbon dioxide gas embolism caused by the surgeon. Without these experts' work, the surgeon's error would never have been exposed. There would be no accountability, end quote, explained Burke, whose practice is in Lakefront. Quote, the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office blamed this woman's death on a heart arrhythmia, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with her heart. The assistant medical examiner flat out missed the actual cause of death, a gas embolism, end quote. The lawyer for the woman's family gathered a team of highly regarded medical experts to prove that the gas embolism that took her life was caused by medical negligence. Dr. Howard Yeaton, a general surgeon, reviewed the records and found that a gas embolism was the only possible explanation for this woman's death, rejecting the assistant medical examiner's conclusion. Pathologist Dr. Michael Kaufman reviewed the autopsy slides, which revealed liver injury, and tissue slides that showed evidence of gas bubbles in the lungs. Kaufman also found that embolism was the only possible cause of death. Dr. George Valos, an internationally recognized expert in laparoscopic surgery, found that the surgeon negligently used a blind entry technique with the needle used to inflate her abdomen with carbon dioxide gas, even though the woman had prior surgical scars and an enlarged liver. Valos explained that an, quote, open, end quote, technique in which the surgeon can see where the needle enters the abdomen was necessary under the circumstances. Kaufman noted that the assistant medical examiner was not aware of how a gas embolism can occur in the operating room and did not read or consider the surgical records before coming to his mistaken conclusion. Quote, the autopsy has to answer the following questions, explained Kaufman. Why did this person die? Why did they die at that particular point in time? And what were the constellation of events which became incompatible with life? The only way you can do that is to take the records of the hospitalization and see what went on that ultimately led to that person's death. That was not done in this case, end quote. The attorneys for the surgeon and hospital argued that the blind entry technique satisfied the standard of care, but this negligent decision was the direct cause of the patient's death. When the surgeon blindly inserted the needle, he struck the woman's liver and injected it with high-pressure carbon dioxide gas, which formed a bubble or, quote, embolism that traveled to the heart and cut off the flow of blood to the lungs. The surgeon called it cold blue, but declared his patient dead on the operating table after 90 minutes of attempted resuscitation. The deceased woman is survived by her elderly parents, whom she housed and supported financially, and 3 adult sisters and their families. Quote, this woman was the center of her family. Her parents and sisters are devastated by her death, and they deserved compensation for this awful and preventable loss, said Burke. This tragedy should never have happened. While no surgery is ever routine, there are basic decisions that doctors must make to protect their patient's safety during an operation. Sadly, in this case, the patient suffered the ultimate loss due to bad decisions by those entrusted with her care, end quote. Yet another mess up by the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. Moving right along. This is actually from ABC 7, and it is from February the 8th of 2012. Family sues over morgue's handling of woman's body. The family of Carmelita Johnson did not release details of the suit, only that they want justice to be served. Johnson's daughter says the medical examiner was negligent in handling her mother's case. They claim 14 months passed without the morgue notifying them that Johnson's body had been recovered from Lake Michigan. Quote, it's devastating, said Leslie Jackson, Carmelita Johnson's daughter. A lot of things could have been prevented. We don't know the cause of death, but if the ME's office had done their jobs, we could have had some type of closure, end quote. The family is calling for Dr. Nancy Jones to step down as Cook County Medical Examiner. They say it was a police detective, not someone from the morgue, who finally told them of Johnson's body being recovered. Isn't that terrible? 14 months. Her mother was recovered from Lake Michigan. 14 months she sat in that morgue. How about this headline? This is from January 30th of 2012. From the Daily Herald. Answer to morgue mess: don't die in Cook County. Wow. If the only certainties in life are death and taxes, then a morgue is one of the few places where those two realities intersect. Or, in the case of the Cook County morgue, collide. The concept is simple. Everybody dies. Some bodies need to be kept until they are identified, or a cause of death is determined, and the taxpayers fund that place in the process. In Cook County, though, where the execution of simple governmental tasks seem chronically complicated, even the dead cannot rest in peace without being dragged through a political labyrinth. Numerous people are to blame for the shameful, uncaring neglect that has allowed bodies to be disrespected in piles, sometimes uncovered and rotting for months. That list includes anyone who knew about the deteriorating conditions and didn't utter a word until the pictures hit the fan. The civic-minded employees of the medical examiner's office who gave photos of their horrid working conditions to me and triggered the current, quote, overhaul, end quote, should be given whistleblower awards for helping families find misplaced loved ones and not drawn and quartered at as the county president would like to see. But in keeping with Illinois tradition, that is just what is happening. After those explicit behind-the-scenes morgue photos showed up on ABC7, Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Nancy Jones, who we just spoke about in the last article, called in the County Inspector General, not to help sort through the health, safety, and public relations fiasco, but to hunt down the workers who took the pictures and leaked them to me. A county spokesperson explained that taking such photos violated the policy against unauthorized pictures in the morgue and raised privacy issues. I asked, quote, whose privacy, end quote, but didn't get an answer. It hasn't always been this way at the morgue. Cook County's first medical examiner, Dr. Robert Stein, for whom the county's Forensic Institute is named, would have been mortified by such a ghoulish embarrassment. Stein, a slightly built, eccentric man, with an unusually high-pitched voice, was part TV detective like Columbo and part TV coroner like Quincy. Somehow, despite his personal peculiarities, he had a calming, grandfatherly presence during some of the area's most painful tragedies. It goes into the whole John Wayne Gacy incident. Stein's understudy and successor, Dr. Edmund Donahue, which I spoke about in my last video, also managed to deal with the worst mass death event in modern Chicago, the 1995 killer heat wave that claimed nearly 750 lives by one count. As heat victims were brought to the morgue by the dozens that summer, Donahue didn't stack them in piles as we have seen in recent photos, or pile them on the floor. He brought in refrigerated semi-trailers, had them parked outside the ME's office, and stored the bodies there until the crisis ended. Why wasn't that done last week or last year as the morgue became overcrowded? As Cook County President Toni Preckwinkle stood under a portrait of Dr. Stein during her news conference last week, I asked that question. Miss Preckwinkle mumbled something unresponsive, but did not answer the question. However, had someone brought in portable cooling trucks long ago, there would be no immediate crisis. The tenures of Dr. Donahue and Stein were not without controversy and complaints, but what public officials in Cook County can make such claims? Right, they're usually tattered with controversy and complaints. Although she is described as a fine doctor, you don't get that feeling from the current medical examiner, who has not been seen during the crisis. Until things are fixed, perhaps the best advice would be, try not to die in Cook County. Wow. And perhaps I've saved the biggest doozy for last. Kohler versus Cook County. This is from Case Text. We're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this lawsuit. Plaintiff Dorothy Kohler, appeals from summary judgment for defendants Cook County, the county, and the Cook County Deputy Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Edmund Donahue. There he is again. In an action seeking recovery for mental anguish she suffered as a result of the alleged negligent, reckless, and willful and wanton acts and omissions of defendants in their handling of the body of her deceased brother, David Kohler. The remaining named defendant, the City of Chicago, is not a party to this appeal, we affirm. Now here it is. Pay attention. 20 people, including the plaintiff's brother, David Kohler, died as a result of a fire in an apartment building at 5523 North Kenmore Avenue in Chicago on March the 14th, 1981. The bodies of the victims were transported to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office by members of the Chicago Police Department. A body assigned the number 81-323 was tentatively identified in a police report as being that of, quote, Donald Kohler, not David, Donald, which was the name on a prescription medicine vial found in the pocket of the deceased's clothing. The police officers who transported the body to the morgue showed the vial to a morgue attendant and then placed it in the body bag containing body 81-323. Dr. Donahue did not see or request access to the police report to aid in the identifications of any of the fire victims, nor did he know about or ever receive the vial mentioned in the report, which apparently was lost. He was, however, in possession of a list of the names of the tenants on the apartment building. Although body 81-323 was partially burned, including mild burning over the face, the burning was not severe enough to interfere with visual identification or fingerprinting. An investigator from the medical examiner's office contacted the Kohler family 2 days after the fire to inform them that it appeared from the tenant list that a person named David or Donald Kohler may have been one of the victims of the fire. However, a few days later, the investigator telephoned Daniel Kohler, a brother of the plaintiff and the deceased, and told Daniel that, quote, they didn't believe it was David, end quote. On March the 16th, 1981, a security guard who, in 1980, had shot Donald Kohler, David's twin brother, viewed body 81-323 and stated that it was not that of Donald Kohler. This conclusion was consistent with the physical examination of the body, which revealed no gunshot wounds. On March the 15th, Ronald Zimney received a call from a friend who reported to him that his brother, Lee Zimney, had been in the apartment building on the night of the fire. On March the 18th, 3 days later, Ronald and his wife Gail looked at photographs and television monitor films of the four yet unidentified victims. Ronald and Gail both agreed that body 81-323 was that of Lee Zimney. Gail also viewed the body and stated that although the burns made identification difficult, she believed from the size, build, and facial features that it was the body of her brother-in-law. The Zimneys also supplied Dr. Donahue with a description of Lee Zimney and his dental records. Dr. Donahue compared Lee Zimney's dental x-rays with those taken of body 81-323 and found them to be similar. Later that same day, after being informed of the Zimneys' identification of the body, Dr. Pavlik, chief of forensic odontology at the medical examiner's office, also made a comparison of the x-rays and concurred with Dr. Donahue's preliminary finding that they matched. On the basis of the Zimneys' identification of the body as being that of Lee Zimney, and the similarities in the dental x-rays, as well as the lack of any conflicting identification evidence, such as fingerprints, the taking of which is normally the responsibility of the police, or any personal effects found on or with the deceased, Dr. Donahue authorized the release of the body to the Zimneys. The body was cremated and interred on March the 19th, 1981 by the Zimney family. Almost 1 year later, the police report tentatively identifying body 81-323 as, quote, Donald Kohler, end quote, on the basis of the medicine vial was brought to the attention of Dr. Donahue. Plaintiff was contacted and thereafter came to the medical examiner's office to view photographs of all the victims of the fire. She identified the photograph of body 81-323 as being that of her brother, David Kohler. After further examination by a second forensic odontologist, it was determined that the dental x-rays of body 81-323 did not match those of Lee Zimney. Dr. Donahue also contacted the Zimneys to inform them of the misidentification. After a re-examination of the photographs she viewed in March of 1981, Gail Zimney still believed the photograph of body 81-323 to be that of Lee Zimney. In March 1982, the remains of David Kohler were exhumed and given to the Kohler family. Now here's the basis of the lawsuit. On June 28, 1982, plaintiff filed a 3-count complaint against defendants. In her complaint, as subsequently amended, plaintiff alleged that the defendants had negligently, recklessly, and willfully and wantonly failed to make a proper identification of the body of her brother, failed to take all steps necessary to keep and maintain the body in a condition suitable for a proper burial, failed to deliver the body to her in substantially the same condition it had been received, failed to do whatever was necessary to ensure that the body would be maintained in as good a condition as it was when received, failed to deliver the body to her despite her repeated requests for it, denied her the opportunity to make a positive identification of the body, interfered with her efforts to arrange a proper and decent burial of the body, and allowed her brother's misidentified body to be cremated against her wishes. The complaint further alleged that she suffered extreme mental anguish as a proximate result of defendants' acts and omissions in the handling and disposition of her brother's body. So, all of these things compounded are what makes me not trust the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. It makes me question every single thing that they write, every single thing that they say, every single thing that they've looked at or touched. And Kenneka Jenkins' case is no different. I'm going to end it on this, but I'm going to continue to expose these people. I just can't. I can't not do it. I've held on to it way too long. And like I've said in other videos, this is the only subject that I've ever been threatened about regarding the Kenneka Jenkins case, for whatever reason. And honestly, I believe that that person that sent me the email and also commented on my video was actually an employee of the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. And that's the saddest part of all. So I'm going to end the video on this note. I hope you guys have a great night.